Welcome, everybody. This is experience. Of course, we all know that. We're all intimately familiar with all our experience is experience. But do we really know what it is? Do we notice what it actually is? I think typically we have ideas about what it is. We think we exist as human beings, and we exist in bodies, and we exist on the world, and we exist in space-time, and we exist in context of all sorts of other people and other situations and other, environments that we have to interact with, and we typically attach a certain importance to all of that. But is all that really true? Do we know what this is? How nakedly do we notice this experience? How nakedly are we receptive to it, to really see what it is and let it show us what it is, outside of the context of our preconception? Experience doesn't come with labels. It doesn't come with an operator's manual. It doesn't come with directions saying this is this and that's that. And yet, if we look at it without preconceptions, if we look at it with openness, it will show us exactly what it is. And it will certainly not be what we expect it to be. It will certainly not be what we think of it as. Because it's beyond thought. It's beyond conceptualization. It's beyond collapsing down to simple notions. This can't be collapsed down. This is what it is. And if you collapse it down to some notion, you create a fiction. And yet, typically, this is the normal mode of functioning for most people. Is we live our lives according to definitions of what we think we are, definitions of what we think this is. These collapsed down versions of this, like little stick figures. Like a little kindergartner might draw mommy and daddy, a little stick figure. Like, here's mommy, here's daddy, Well, that's not mommy and that's not daddy. Mommy and daddy are these infinite, multidimensional phenomena. This is a little stick figure. And yet we do exactly the same thing with ourselves, with our world, with others, with the whole show. And yet the real thing is right here before our eyes. The real thing is present, naked, obvious, but there's nothing in the way. There's nothing impeding our experience of it. This is it. So we can see what it is very directly, very nakedly, if we have the good fortune or luck or whatever it takes to stumble onto that notion. And that's pretty much the whole story. So what would you all like to talk about today? Do we have enough chairs? We good? Oh, good. Perfect number. Perfect chairs. Right number of chairs, right number of people.
I just want to say, I really love and enjoy hearing what you're saying because it sounds it just makes sense to me on some deep level. And it makes me happy to hear it, and yet it doesn't match my experience the way I operate.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you say there's chai in the other room, I get the idea there's chai in the other room, and I'm going for the chai.
Right.
And that's it. There's nothing about seeing energy or, having a new experience looking for the goddamn chai.
Well, what makes you think chai is an energy?
Well, that's all it is for me, is a cup of chai. I don't have any on anything that's moving or changing or shifting or new. I'm just looking for a reliable thing I think of.
And yet you notice that your experience is constantly shifting, I'm sure.
No, that's the pain. I don't want to call it a pain, but it is quite kind of a pain that I don't notice.
Sure.
Unless it's a drag. Unless it's I'm having pain and now I have no pain. Then I can notice it if it's an event. But moment by moment experience, I honestly don't seem to notice that it's changing.
Okay. But you could, because it is.
How? Yeah.
It
is
is.
It doable? Is it possible?
Well, certainly. We're speaking now, and as I say a word, I say the first part of the word and that's gone, and then I'm saying the middle part of the word and that's gone, I'm saying the last part of the word, it's gone. Yeah. It's gone completely. Yeah. And what my eyes happen to be resting on when I'm saying the first part of the word is different than what I'm noticing as I'm saying the middle part. So the experience of my mouth moving is different. The experience of what my eyes are seeing is different. I'm thinking different thoughts. So if I have the wherewithal to notice, in actual fact, experience is constantly flowing, constantly shifting. And admittedly, it's possible to not have the wherewithal to notice it. It's possible to just be locked into, a description, a sort of a story version of things. But it's also possible to get outside that from time to time. Because no matter how strong your story is, there are times when you're not in it so much. That you space out, or you get distracted, or you get startled, or something unexpected happens. And at those times, that's a great opportunity. All of a sudden, wow, wait a minute, the script has been broken. What page are we on? And then you might regroup and get back into the story, right? But you don't have to. And the very fact that the story can be broken up is evidence that it's actually not continuous. It's actually not a whole. It's actually not a solid thing, as our imaginations make it, as we get seduced into thinking it is. So the opportunity is there, And again, it's a matter of good fortune, perhaps, or luck, or inspiration, or astrological transits, or whatever, in terms of the extent to which you can avail yourself of it, right? But the good news is the possibility is there. The opportunity is there. Openness is right here, and from time to time we can notice it.
And I think it's essential for me to get with that awareness, or things just are kind of stale and dead and trite.
Well, there you go. That's the argument.
Without jumping out of that habitual way of framing everything, life is kind of a drag.
Well, you make a good point. It's been made before you.
See, I can make the point, but it doesn't seem to break the code, or jump me out of my own.
Yeah, but it's a matter of chipping away. It's a matter of baby steps, as they say. Just the fact that you can make the point means that it's part of your consciousness. Yeah. There are many people who that notion wouldn't even occur to, perhaps. They might just think, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? This is my life. What do you mean different? What do you mean pain? What do you mean boredom?" So, so it's everything always changes, and newness and opportunity is always presenting itself, and at times we're able to avail ourselves of it, and that's the great opportunity, and it builds on itself. You're not liable to go backwards. Once the door is open a crack, it's liable to continue opening.
I was going to say, I find myself delighting in the fact that I know how things are going to be. And I expect things to be the same. And I find myself going to do things because they were good back then, and I expect them to be as they were back then in the future or now.
How well is that working for you?
Yeah, you see my point. And I haven't been able to break out of that, and it's been a little frustrating. It's coming to a head lately.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it will. And again, when things start to come to a head, is a great opportunity, because the old way of doing it over and over and over again isn't working. It's a motivator. It's an irritant. It motivates us to wait a minute. Is there an alternative here? What are my options? Is there anything else? Is there anything new? Is there any other way of approaching this? And so this frustration is a great opportunity, and as Buddha pointed out so eloquently.
Yeah, safety's always been my goal.
Yeah, safety's your goal, but how much safety can you have in pretense? You can only really find a pretend safety, and then real life, real circumstances catch up with us, right? And all of a sudden, where's the safety then? You have to sort of regroup and recapture it. The true safety is in reality. The true safety is in what you can't lose. And what you can't lose is what this actually is, right in the moment, always. And that's the great opportunity.
Undeniable.
Yeah, exactly so.
saw that it's another one of these direct introduction, direct revelation teachings, like ElCerrito.
Another one of those darn direct teachings.
One of the I tried to come up with some new terms for it. I call it non-gradual. It's one term. But another term I thought was instinctive. Also came to mind. And I thought to myself, well, okay, now Peter's not telling us to, massage those chakras and get more credibility and, have a breakthrough. That doesn't seem to be your teaching at all. It seems to be...
Oh, that can be great fun.
But the problem is, it just goes on and on and on. You can have a breakthrough until you pass out or whatever. But how do you break through to the white light? And that's the key question. And it seems to me that you're really saying, just do it. I mean, this whole business of getting the frog to jump off of the lily pad, as stupid as it sounds, it seems like maybe that's really the way to do it. But I'm just wondering now, maybe it's your goal to never really talk about what you're doing. So maybe I'm kind of like going down barking the wrong tree here. But
nothing hidden, nothing up this sleeve.
Is there some way?
Don't look over here.
Some way to bypass everything and get instant enlightenment?
Yes.
And avoid all the work, the fuss, the bother, and all the fees and everything.
Yes.
All the chai.
Yes.
The chai expenses. Right?
This is it. You'll never have to buy another cup of chai in your life. This is it.
Shiva incarnated himself as Peter, let's say, and taught us, okay, now, class, listen up. This is it. Okay, and I guess that's what we're talking about.
This is it. The major impediment to seeing the white light is having the preconception that it's a white light. This is the white light. That is the absolute truth. This is the white light. You're seeing the white light right now.
Let me ask you a follow-up question.
Follow-up question is another reason why you're not seeing the white light. Okay, that's
Another word. You use it all the time. The force or power. I just want to know, is that synonym for Shakti?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
So, the Tao, the white light, whatever. That's all.
Feel free to come in and there's plenty of floor here if you're okay, cool.
So, it's here. It's always here.
Yeah, of course.
But there's always this ongoing relationship with his personality,
Sure,
with
of course.
conditioned being. So, this receiving a recognition, the problem is the conditioning and the personality, because the one thing that Bhakti Shanti says, that enlightenment isn't personal. So anytime it's actually spoken about, like Frank does, that's immediately proclaiming delusion. Excuse me, but however, there's no end to the condition
Right.
being, and obviously circumstances heighten it, exaggerate it, and other times it's reduced where there seems to be some kind of I'm getting it,
Right.
and yet it's here always. So
Right.
what to do about personality, the conditioned being?
Okay. The simple way to approach personality and conditioned being is don't look there. If every time you look at your conditioned being and your personality, all you find is conditioned being and personality, then try looking somewhere else. I think the notion that enlightenment or reality or our true condition is to be found in objectivity is absolutely true. What's objective? What is your personality and conditioning existing in? What's it made of? What context does it exist in? There's this being right here, right now. This actually is. Okay? This is real. This is as real as it gets. The being of this. Okay? Your personality exists in the context of that being. Okay? The non-personality aspects of your experience exist in this exact same being. You look around, you see this room. It's not a part of your personality, I assume you experience. You know, you look out, you look at the sun, it's not a part of your personality, it's relatively objective. Okay? But the sun and this room both exist in this being. Your personality exists in this being. So instead of going right to the personality, you know, like Narcissus to his reflection, why not look at what's the context? So the personality's here, okay, what's over here? What's over here?
At this moment, and generally, then you appear to have the capacity to have an objective appreciation of the personality. But there are times where the conditioning is so actually strong that what you're suggesting isn't really, it's not happening.
Right, but those aren't the times to investigate, the times when it's weak. You can play to your strengths, you know, work when the tide is with you. So those moments when the conditioning isn't so strong, that's a great opportunity. Then, you know, when you're feeling a little lucid or you're feeling a little detached or a little spaced out or a little inspired or something, then look around, see what you can see, see what you can find.
That goes directly to the problem in the sense, you know, when I'm home, had a glass of wine or two, boy do I get wise. But then
maybe we should stay home and have more wine.
Well, I was questioning why it was hard to get moving. Do I come here or do I surrender to my fatigue?
Decisions.
Yeah, and
I had that same conundrum.
But that's where the suffering comes, because you go from that particular, you know, way of being to the next day or something when the conditioning is overwhelming you as bad as it ever has in your whole life, and then you realize that you haven't learned, you're no better, you're as fucked up as you always were.
Okay. It's not about being fucked up or not being fucked up. You know, you may be mistaking.
Or suffering is happening.
Yeah, but even suffering's happening. Fine. It's not about suffering. It's not about solving problems. It's not about self-improvement. It's not about becoming sane or becoming non-neurotic or not being having this sucky human personality that we all have. It's about what is that in? What is that made of? What is the context? You know, and if you investigate, if you look at your experience when you have sufficient lucidity to do so, you will find that the personality is not everything. The personality exists in a context of non-personality. Just like you as a person exist in a context of a world which is relatively non-you, right? So what is that? Go to the non-you and see what it is, and let it show you what it is. And you bypass the whole issue. And what you discovered there may, in fact will, but you know, for purposes of argument, may apply to actually where the suffering and the issues are, and may actually go a long way towards alleviating or addressing that. So,
that's not just distraction.
Huh?
You're not just distracting yourself by bringing your attention away from I toward the objects and the reality around you. You're not just distracting yourself from pain and from self-involvement.
Not if you see what it is. The important thing is to see what it is.
How do you see what it is?
By looking.
If you can look till you're blue in the face at the clock, then all you see is the clock.
Yeah, well, you need a little luck. You need a little luck. You need a little karma. You know, and that's we're all subject to that context. And yet you have a certain amount of luck. You have a certain amount of karma. You're at least asking these questions. You're coming to meetings like this. You know, instead of just going to a bar and beating people up or something. So, you know, maybe the luck is there, maybe the karma is there, maybe it's kicking in as we speak. Yeah.
When you were talking, I went from feeling like I'm in a room with people I don't know. When I'm alone, it's much more easy for me to just be really expansively peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was like, where am I? What's all this? And who am I? And is there like a gap between me and my comfort out there? And then you were talking, and I went, who am I in terms of this is all me? And it became much more gentle.
Yeah, true.
And it was like, who am I in terms of everyone, not me versus you?
Exactly.
And so it shifted my energy.
Sure. And that's always there. Even if it's you and me alone in the room, there's the room. There's the light outside the window. There's the sky. There's the sound of traffic. There's gravity. There's always a context. There's always, and our only problem is tunnel vision. Our only problem is obsessiveness. We zone in on this, me, you, issues, problems, but it's all, and it's not a matter that those aren't there. That's fine. But they're not the only thing that's there, and in fact, if we take a survey of our experience, they turn out to be a pretty small aspect of what's there. That's the revelation. Our experience is huge, and our personalities are small. And our issues are even smaller.
Just getting 360-degree vision instead of this little...
Exactly so. And the opportunity is always there, because the 360 degrees is always there. We have to have the good fortune to remember to notice it or to stumble on it or whatever, but it's always there, so the opportunity is always there.
Why do you say it's a good fortune to remember that?
I'm sorry?
Why do you say it's a good fortune to remember that?
Well, it might not be a good fortune, but if you're interested in finding it, then noticing it is a good fortune.
Seems like it's sounding like coincidence to me rather than being conscious of it.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It sounded to me like it's a coincidence since out of your control.
Yes.
Not within your own consciousness.
Well, that's what I mean by good fortune. Good fortune implies that it's not necessarily something you can do. But you may have the good fortune that it is something you can do, and you don't know till you try. It's like, playing the violin. If you never tried it, how do you know you can't do it? Maybe you can. Maybe you're a virtuoso and you don't know it. I mean, this is a silly example, but...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a good fortune to be conscious. I mean, it's an intention. Like, if you want to be conscious, you can be conscious. So it's not like we don't have any control, we have total control over it.
Well, we are always conscious, whether we want to be or not, because that's what we are consciousness. Consciousness is what our experience exists in and is made of. When you go to sleep, the phenomenon of going to sleep occurs in consciousness, or how would you know it's happening? When you wake up, the waking up occurs in consciousness, and how would you know it's happening? So consciousness is a constant. But what we may notice in that consciousness is maybe what we typically refer to as being conscious, like I'm conscious of the color of your shirt, or I'm not conscious of it. What I mean by that is I'm not noticing it. If your shirt exists at all in my experience, then obviously there's consciousness of it. Or how could it exist? Existence equals consciousness. In the sense that you don't know something exists unless you're conscious of it. You know the sun exists because you're conscious of it. Right? You know gravity exists because you're conscious of it. It exists in your consciousness.
Well, gravity exists whether we're conscious or not. It's a law. It's a fact that it can be changed.
How do you know that?
How do I know that?
Yeah.
Because it's a law.
Well, how do you know it's a law?
Because I experience it.
Because you experience it. You experience it how?
Well, whether I experience or not, or whether it's in my awareness or not, it still works. That's what I was trying to say.
How do you know? You say that. How do you know it works?
I know it works because I learned from my experience. But if I didn't know, it still works.
Well, you learned from your experience, and now you say, but if it didn't, if you hadn't, it would still work. How can you say that? How do you know that?
Because now I know.
Because now you know because of your experience.
Exactly.
Right, and your experience exists because of consciousness. The point of this isn't to split hairs. The point of this is to try and get to the bedrock of what is actually happening here in a more fundamental way than we're used to thinking of. To explore what's happening here. Maybe our ideas of what's happening here have not been 100% accurate, have been simplistic, have been conditioned by our ideas or ideas that have been fed to us. And so all I'm suggesting here is to explore what can we really know about what's happening here outside of the context of what we've been told, outside of the context of what so-called common sense is.
Did you say a second ago there would be no experience without consciousness?
Sure.
consciousness. It occurred to me after that experiencing consciousness is kind of the goal.
Sure. And that paradoxically, consciousness always experiences consciousness. What did you say?
Is there an I that doesn't experience consciousness?
Is there, sorry?
Is there an I that doesn't always experience the consciousness?
Well, you ask an interesting question. I would say look and see.
I don't find myself always experiencing consciousness. I find myself sometimes avoiding it.
Well, if you're avoiding it in consciousness, though, because you're avoiding it in experience, and for there to be experience, it has to be being experienced, which presupposes what we. I mean, consciousness sounds like an abstract word. Okay, we should probably define our terms. By consciousness, I mean the fact that experience is experienced. Experience is experienced inherently. And we can leave it open for now exactly how that happens or what's doing it, if anything. But if there's experience, then that experience is being experienced, I would say as an axiom by definition. And so if there's experience, there is consciousness. And consciousness is just a designation of whatever this quality of being experienced is. So consciousness is always happening, even when we're distracted. You can't know you're distracted unless you're distracted in consciousness. You can't be sick unless you're being sick in consciousness. You can't be drunk and pass out unless you're drunk and pass out in consciousness. Or how would you even know you have?
What I got when you were talking is that sometimes I just avoid being aware of the experience.
Sure. And the only way to do that...
Go asleep to the experience,
sure.
It goes asleep to the...
Sure.
The consciousness is still there.
Sure. The only way you can do that is in imagination. Because consciousness doesn't ever actually go away. But we can pretend it does by abstracting ourselves into fantasy, into distraction, into removing ourselves from aspects of our experience into projected...
It isn't that fun.
And yet, all of that happens in consciousness.
The basis.
Yeah, it has to. It has to. So we can never depart from consciousness. We can never depart from it. That's a really powerful point. And there's your clear light, or white light as you call it. You can never depart from consciousness. And it's self-evident fact. So it's self-evident fact you can never, it's always obtained, it was always so. So you're looking for some white light. Maybe it has never gone anywhere. Maybe it's right here. Maybe it's a little more multicolored than white sometimes. Yeah.
Dude, part of me really hates splitting hairs, but part of me really likes it.
I know that about you.
So I feel like splitting some hairs right now with this
Sure.
talk. Is that okay? So I've always been terribly, and I choose that word specifically, terribly intrigued by this discussion of consciousness. For example, one way of asking this question is the body, is what we experience as our body occurring within awareness or consciousness? Or is consciousness or awareness a byproduct of the body? Right, that's one way of putting it, And it's very difficult for me to accept that that the body is occurring within awareness. Even though it's self-evident, right? You're just sort of taking us, it's sort of self-evident.
Okay.
You always say, well, how do you know that? It's only, so awareness, so obviously awareness is primary.
Okay, awareness is primary. Let's put that up on the wall. Awareness is primary, okay.
But then there's this other evidence.
Right.
There's this other evidence which sort of is so convincing. And here's sort of the gist of that evidence to me. I can, if I alter what these things that appear within awareness, any of my sense organs, yeah, it alters the sensations.
Right.
Okay, so all the elements that appear within awareness, all the sensations, do seem to be affected by my sense organs, which I assume to be my body. Now, we're really splitting hairs here, but what the conclusion I reach from that is that my sensations are dependent upon my body and my sense organs.
Right.
So my question is, when you speak of conscious, and that's sort of like the raw data awareness, right? You keep pointing us to well, just
well, wait a minute, you lost me.
The raw data of experience.
They said that's the raw.
I meant the raw data of experience.
Okay.
The raw data of experience are just these sensations.
Right.
And these sensations, taken individually, it seems so difficult to see, and it's not being dependent upon the body. Just because, if I play with what I think is this, it changes my hearing,
right,
and it changes my experience of all the sensations. So there does seem to be some correlation between my sensations and what I take to be a body. The thing is, though, and this is a distinction that some people make, is maybe there's a difference between the sensations and what they're occurring within. Yeah, this kind of, and that's where I get a little stuck sometimes. Is there a difference between like the sensations and awareness, what we're calling awareness or consciousness?
Ultimately, no. And let's go to the example of a dream. A dream appears to be an objective phenomenon when you're in it, right? You may dream you're in New York City and you're walking down the street and someone comes up to you and talks to you, right? That seems to be relatively objective when you're in a dream, okay? And yet, is there anything there whatsoever other than awareness? Is there anything there whatsoever other than consciousness? Is there a New York there? Is there bricks there? What is this dream made of? What material, what substance does it consist of?
Yeah.
It has to consist of consciousness itself, because there's nothing else there. When the dream ends, proof it's gone, and what remains? Consciousness. So, clearly, every aspect of a dream consists of consciousness. And within the dream you can see, you can hear, you can talk, you can pick things up, you can feel things. All of these phenomena occur within consciousness. Now, we'll get to that later.
Get on with it. We get it about the dreams. But that's distinctly different from the physical body. In a dream you can jump from being in New York City and a snap of a finger to being in Shanghai.
Right.
But in this body, like
you have to get in a 747.
You can't jump from New York City to Shanghai in a snap of a finger.
Well, it depends how long it takes you to snap your fingers.
Yeah.
Isn't it about the Hindu gurus can do that?
Anyway, let me. I don't want to drop your point. There's clearly a lot of apparent cross correspondence in phenomena, right? And
what is at the beginning of that?
There's clearly a lot of cross correspondence in phenomena. I close my eyes and my field of vision changes radically.
Right.
So there's a sensation that my eyelids closing. There's a sensation of my field of vision changing radically. So I can say there's a correspondence. I can do it again, I can do it again, I can do it again, I can do it again. So there's cross correspondence. But what conclusions can we draw from that?
Yeah, that's the question.
And is this circumstantial or is it fundamental? And in one sense we can't really know. But in another sense we have compelling evidence that you can have apparent causal relationships or apparent, functional interconnectedness where there is none. And again, we can go back to the dream example, an example that I use over and over again. Little less body language back there, please. An example I use over and over again is in a dream you might want to drive your car away. So you get in your car, you get the key out of your pocket, you put the key in the ignition, you turn it, and of course the car starts and you drive away. Now, did the key start the car? Well, of course not. The consciousness started the car. The consciousness puts the car there. The dreaming consciousness puts the key there. The dreaming consciousness puts the interaction. The dreaming consciousness generates the appearance of the car driving away, even though it looks as if the key started the car. So, admittedly, the degree of cross-correspondence of phenomena in the waking world is astoundingly intricate. But to suppose that that is an argument that it is actually, as it presents itself, is to suppose that there is not a more powerful intelligence that's capable of actually generating that degree of complexity. And clearly there is an intelligence capable of generating that degree of intelligence, of complexity, because look at the atoms. What is organizing all these atoms that are appearing as the universe? Their precise interaction, the law of gravity. All of these phenomena are dovetail perfectly. I mean, look at this. An astronomer can measure the atomic mass of stars in the Andromeda galaxy and look at their spectra and all this, and it all just dovetails perfectly. What principle is organizing that orchestration? What principle is organizing that synchronicity? Whether you think of it as objective and physical or subjective and mental, clearly it's a vast intelligence at work. Okay? And since, manifestly, all phenomena, as far as we know, occur in consciousness, why lead to the conclusion that that vast intelligence is not inherent in consciousness?
Okay, yeah. Can I just share my thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah. What's coming up for me is that you're proposing that there's just as strong a reason to believe that that correlation, right, between what I take to be my body,
right,
and experience. It's just as strong a reason to think that correlation. I need to jump to the conclusion that means that awareness is a byproduct of my body.
Of course.
Okay? But it might just as well be that, for example, the body is just occurring within awareness. So awareness is actually primary. But it doesn't actually, and the dreaming analogy also is like you could say, well, it could be that this is just like a dream, and that's a very powerful argument. But it doesn't, it's not a proof.
Right.
It's just like an equally strong, it's like you're suggesting, be open to this possibility.
Sure.
Yeah?
Okay, but there's a stronger argument. I'm going to bring out the heavy guns now. Okay. Let's say...
Can I share one of the stuff? Can you hold that?
You're going to want me to just demolish the whole playing field?
No, go ahead.
There's a stronger argument. Let's say awareness is a byproduct of the body. What is the body in? What is doing the body?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if awareness is a byproduct of the body is a byproduct of, let's say, the functioning of the universe. Call it the functioning of nature.
Yeah.
Call it the biosphere, or the galactic biosphere, or the intergalactic biosphere. We'll make up words for it. Okay? So there's clearly a powerful organizing intelligence at work that the body is an expression of, and then the awareness, which we're arguing is a byproduct of the body, is an expression of. So the awareness is still one with the organizing intelligence of reality.
I see, yeah.
So it's a matter of splitting hairs, and it's a matter of cart before the horse as to whether this is primary and that's primary. But since they all coexist, there's no reason to suppose layers. Why not just say the awareness is the body, is the organizing principle of the universe, and then whether or not it's objective or subjective, material or immaterial, is a subject of abstraction. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like all that. It's kind of like all that speculation about noumenal and phenomenal reality, and then it's like, well, then what is, or the law of gravity, for example? This presupposition that that's objective reality.
Right.
It's out there. It's these bodies, it's these atoms, it's hard reality. But what actually is that?
Exactly.
You can't say anything about it. And actually, the more you kind of think about that, it does seem to be. It would extend into this world too. There aren't.
Of course, because there's no dividing lines.
No.
If objective physical reality has as a byproduct awareness, then the awareness is one with objective physical reality. Just like the functioning of, just like electromagnetic field is a product of a functioning of a dynamo, but that electromagnetic field is one with the dynamo functioning.
Yeah.
It's not like they're separate things.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes, pretty much.
they're inherent. The electric field is inherent in the nature of the dynamo. You take the dynamo apart, the electric field stops, but what the electric field is hasn't gone anywhere. It's still inherent in the laws of the physics of what the dynamo is made of, so it's right there. You know, the point being that this is the functioning of one system, and splitting hairs about what that system is more a matter of nomenclature than anything.
Yeah.
There's one system that's producing the universe, it's producing bodies, it's producing consciousness, it's producing awareness. And from our point of view as individuals, the bottom line for us is consciousness. Everything that we know exists as experience, i.e. in consciousness, let's say. So, that's why I hammered that as a point of ingress for investigation, because that immediately is a more fundamental baseline of what we manifestly have to work with than all these abstractions about, definitions and labelings and concepts about what it is it this, is it that, is it... I mean, it clearly is, whatever it is. Let's look at that. Let's try and cut underneath the flak to what's the most fundamental, and then begin to work with that. And that, whatever that is clearly one with whatever it's one with, which is one with whatever system is producing it, or that it produces. The smoke is ultimately one with the fire. We have a word for smoke and a word for fire, but you make a fire, you get smoke. You have smoke, you have a fire. So why not just say they're one thing? They're different aspects of one thing.
Yeah.
So we have objective reality and consciousness. Why we have these two names for things, but then you never get objective reality without consciousness, as far as we know, and you never get consciousness without objective reality, as far as you know. So why not just assume they're two names, two words for one thing? Or, as the Hindus put it, Shiva Shakti.
That seems to be the most likely case. Another interesting thing is just the interest in splitting these hairs. And why? Right. It's obvious that all I have access to is my immediate experience, and yet there's this desire to kind of to get it right. Follow? And if I hear something being proposed which sounds a little off, and I say no, that can't be. It's like it sticks. It sticks in the craw. It sticks in saying, no, I have to question that. I wonder what that's...
Well, discriminating intelligence is like a sword, and you want to be careful. And the interesting thing about a sword is it has a pointy end on one side and a handle on the other, and you want to be careful where you point it. Okay? So using discrimination for criticizing arguments is great, but using discrimination to criticize the foundation of what you actually are is questionable.
What does that mean? I'm not sure.
What do you mean?
Okay, bad analogy.
You mean doubting yourself, or?
Peter, could I try something that's been kind of bothering me in this discussion? Is the use of the word awareness.
Okay.
And I feel like we're using that word for at least two different things. One, awareness as, here are my set of concepts, and I'm going to say that that's awareness, versus consciousness, which is what is, which you can't speak about. And so when we keep saying, this is my awareness, we might as well say, this is my thought, this is my concept, this is my projection, and does that have anything to do with reality? And so, does that make any sense? So it's like this one, thread of something that we keep, projecting and saying, why can't I see consciousness, or why can't I get consciousness? Well, because you keep equating it with this little thought that you keep trying to work. Why don't I understand? Because
Yeah.
You can't understand.
You can't understand. You can't get it right. You can't collapse it down to something that's going to make sense. You can't collapse it down to a soundbite. You can't collapse it down to the ultimate statement of truth. You can't collapse it down to an equation which solves everything. It doesn't collapse down to anything other than itself. And here it is. Fortunately, we don't need to collapse it down because we have the real thing. Okay?
Well, it also pervades thoughts and ideas as well.
It's what they're made of.
That's right.
And it's what's experiencing them. So there's nothing but that. So all of this gamesmanship of thinking and analysis and criticism is happening within what actually is, and which is not addressable in any terms other than itself.
Right.
You can't say what it is. You can't collapse it down to anything less than itself. You can't collapse it down to an idea.
Keep trying.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we do.
Well, that's why I brought it up. It doesn't feel like gamesmanship. There feels like sometimes, yes, there is that aspect of it. There seems to be something more. And there's some insecurity there. Yeah, there's like thinking wants to get it. Thinking doesn't want to get to it.
Yeah, but thinking is shit out of luck. Thinking is never going to get it.
Thinking is.
Because it is not a thought. It is beyond thought. And thought prides itself. It has arrogance. It has sufficient hubris to think that it can capture God in an idea. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What is being lucky and what is being unlucky?
You know when it happens. Well, you won't necessarily, because in actual fact it's all luck. Good luck. In other words, what happens is always exactly the right thing that happens, because it's all a process of unfoldment which takes us to where we're going. It's all our trajectory. So, in the most profound sense, it's all luck and it's all good.
Even bad luck
Certainly.
is good luck.
Certainly, because it takes us to where we're going. I'm sure we all have experiences of horrible things that have happened to us that if taken in isolation, you wish they hadn't happened, but they've led to something valuable or profound, or led to, served as motivators that took us somewhere that we were profoundly glad we got to.
So how do you manifest your desires if everything is luck?
Well, you got to work on that. Yeah.
Would you talk about?
Can you answer a question like how?
How to manifest desire?
How do you work on that?
I don't know how to manifest desires. Desires never manifest in my experience, because desires are fundamentally, we have to split what we're talking about with desires. Desires are urges, okay? And for urges to manifest, again, you have to have luck. You have to, say you want to procreate, okay? You have to meet, suppose all of a sudden you want to procreate, but all of a sudden all the males on the earth drop dead. So you have the desire, but you can't actually manifest that desire because you don't have the luck of the circumstances to enable you to do so. So manifesting desires depends ultimately upon luck.
Upon what? Upon luck?
Yes, certainly.
They found a way now, people.
Okay. Modern technology.
Yeah.
Computer.
I don't think I'm getting it.
I'm sorry?
I don't think I'm getting it.
Well, that's okay. There's nothing to get.
Well, I think the difficulty is that there's a lot of emphasis on the experiences we're having being dependent on consciousness. And just a few moments ago, you said that that's in a way a bit of splitting hairs, because consciousness is also reliant perhaps on the fact that the body senses things. So, and to use the analogy of the dream doesn't always work, because what happens in dreaming is not comparable to what happens in so-called waking life. By any means. Even supposedly, if you believe the mythical dual apparitions of some cities of some yogis.
So what is it that's happening in waking life?
What?
What is it that's happening in waking life?
What is it?
What is it that's happening in waking life?
Well, I don't have a description for it, but I'm not sitting where you are either.
Well, I don't have a description. That's the point. It's not describable.
And it's only consciousness.
Right. It's not describable.
Right.
Whatever is happening here is a mystery.
But that's not to say that you can compare and use the dream, sleeping dream, as an analogy for the waking time.
Why not? You can use anything for anything.
Sitting there, so you can say anything you want.
Yeah.
But the point is that it doesn't. To me, it doesn't sell the argument. My direct experience is the only thing I have to go by.
Right.
And
what is that? What is your direct experience?
Whatever I'm experiencing in the moment. I mean, it's too numerous to try and say.
Is it numerous?
If you wanted me to describe it to you, yes, it would be numerous.
No, I didn't.
No,
I wasn't asking you to describe it so much. I was just saying, what is it?
That's just it. Whatever it is, it would be more or less a description of my sensations, what I'm experiencing, what I'm thinking.
But what are they? What is all that?
What?
What is all that?
I don't know. You're the one sitting there. What is it to you?
Well, what's your point?
The point is that there's a lot of emphasis on claiming that the sense of the body and I'm not saying I don't believe you, but this is the argument that I sometimes hear and I can relate to. That the argument is that without this consciousness that you're claiming about, that the body is a result of that, not that a result of the body, of having a body, of there being a body, there being atoms and organisms and whatever you want else to do.
Good.
So, but go ahead.
Well, but Peter actually was suggesting something a little different, I think, which was that even if there is a noumenal or objective reality, which we think of as being the support for what we think of as being subjective reality, yeah?
Sure.
Even that it's not separate from subjective reality. It's impossible to make a hard and fast distinction.
Well, the point is, any distinction is arbitrary. The point is that no point can be made.
Right.
The point is you can't talk about anything because other than the naked fact of this, and we can't even talk about whether or not this is a fact.
Yeah.
Because compared to what?
Yeah.
So while you're here, we can talk about anything.
You're making a distinction.
Yeah,
To explore and to notice that fact.
And
to explore and notice
there's no point anyway. Then what?
Sure, no point.
It's fun.
Well, because it's fun.
Well, the point is that sometimes in these meetings, we stop only being in the intellect and thinking that we know something. And when we give that kind of space to actually wake up in consciousness, then frankly, then Peter can actually talk to us. Otherwise, we're stuck in an argument, which is what we do in our lives most of the time. And we think we're trying to understand something, but we're really stuck in an argument that we're never going to untangle ourselves from until we give it up.
But it's hard to give it up when you have maybe a history of conditioning from your family of trusting parents or trusting society, and you've made a vow to yourself never to just take people's word and trust authority. So when some pain in you arises, it might be neurotic pain, but you really want to argue and try to get to what you looks like the truth. Looks like you're trying for truth. When people are arguing, I think it's a noble argument, even though we're defeating ourselves in a way. I think it's coming from an appetite and a quest for sincerity, and to not let anybody, including you or us, dupe ourselves. We really want to arrive at finally ending the suffering. And the only thing we know is thinking. So we're an apathetic mind.
Wrong. Thinking is a very small part of our functioning.
But that seems to be what we're identified with as our main tool, is our thoughts and our beliefs.
But what I'm pointing out is that's not necessarily the actual case. I'm trying to point out that that's not our only resource. We actually have, most of our experience is direct experience. Your field of vision is not occurring because you're thinking. It's just here, you know. My hand isn't showing up in your field of vision because you're thinking it there. It's actually there outside of thought. Same with your body sensation, same with the sound, blah, 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 blah. And if you take an inventory of your actual field of experience in real time, you'll find that thought takes up this tiny little piece of it, and there's all this other real estate. What's happening? What's going on there? And the thought is fine. That's great. Thought is loads of fun, as we all know. But I'm just trying to illustrate that there's always opportunity. There's always more than we think there is.
Yeah, we usually stay in the farmhouse and never go out into the field.
Nice.
When I came in, Greg was talking about cognitism. Can you speak of the living energetic quality of consciousness and its relationship to, can you speak about that?
Certainly. Well, there's manifestly an amazing energetic presence. Our experience is not just inert somewhere over there waiting for us to go to it. It's jumping into our consciousness or into whatever's experiencing the experience in real time in a very dynamic way, right? Vision is, you can't turn it off. It's here. Thought, you can't turn it off. It's here. Sound, touch, subtle, maybe other subtle energetic experiences. They have a dynamic presence. They come to us, so to speak. And so this is a living energetic presence. That's an inherent aspect of reality, right? And there's no reason to suppose that it's in any way separate from reality itself. It's the nature of reality to have this dynamic nature, to have an effervescence, to have a radiance, a radiant presence.
It seems when we over-conceptualize existence, we're getting dead.
Yeah. When you conceptualize anything, you're going into fantasy, you're going into imagination, you're going into what is not true, you're going into insanity. And which by its very nature is shallow, not nourishing, entrapping, and goes in little circles.
And we know what's true by being intimate with this living.
Yes, because it's real, it's objective, it doesn't go in little circles. So when you go to this energetic presence, and you're immediately introduced to this wild dynamism that is absolutely free. Every moment just happens with absolute spontaneity. It's never happened before. It's never going to happen again. This is freedom. This is spontaneity. This is pure creativity, and it's objectively true, as objectively true as anything could be. It's the case. Let's say it is as it is. And it's not a product or even much of a relationship to thought or to these little vortexes of belief that we may go to in our imagination. So when you go to that, you're going to liveness, you're going to freedom, you're going to vitality itself.
Right, and we can never totally separate it from it, even if we're 99% in our heads.
Of course, because it is you. You can't turn it off. It is you. You can't turn it off.
So it seems what luck is this what we're identifying with. This, why do we identify with the objective reality, or do we identify with a conceptual line out of choice? Or there's some of us who come to these things and have been coming to these things for 40 years, and yet objective reality has never changed. It's always been true, but so
what you might call spiritual maturity or spiritual unfolding, which is another word for life. Life is spiritual unfoldment, occurs at its own pace. And unfoldment is to reality, unfoldment is to the objective fact, unfoldment is to this present energy, this present consciousness, this present whatever it is, however you want to categorize it. Of course, it's not really energy, it's not really consciousness. You can't say what it is, but these are partial models that we can use to investigate it, to find out what it actually is. And so this inherent unfolding that we're all in the midst of is the process of noticing this, the process of opening to reality, opening to truth, opening to what is, opening to what we are, because of course we are this being. What is here is you. You are, and the world appears because you are. So the appearance of the world is one with your being. Right? So opening to that as it actually is opening to the reality of your being, opening to the fullness of the universe to the extent it presents itself to you, and so on.
There's so much failure. I mean, not just for all.
But failure, you have to understand, failure is what the path looks like.
Okay.
It's like when a child learns to walk, that the process consists of failure until they do. Learning to walk is failure. You fall down, you pull yourself up, you fall down, you fail, then all of a sudden you can do it, and then you're no longer learning to walk. And it's the same with spirituality. The process of discovering reality consists of failing to discover reality over and over and over again, you might say, on a continual basis.
I mean, not just seems the whole world. I mean, you don't use words like compassion. That's Buddhist morality, but at the same point, there's so much cruelty and violence, psychological violence in the world. There's so much. There seems to be so much failure of the human race,
right?
The human condition, and it seems so much of existence is not just in the small spiritual secrets. It's just so tragic.
Right. So what about that?
I guess it's just the way it is.
Manifestly.
And it's this perception too.
Sure, manifestly. I mean, when the dinosaurs were going extinct, the dinosaurs may have been going around wailing and mourning, saying, "Everything's going terrible. I can't find food. This whole race of my friends, we're dropping dead. This is terrible." Well, from their point of view, it was, but that's the pattern of things. The pattern of the flow, the ebb and flow of life, includes all of these things that, from the individual point of view, might be great successes and horrible tragedies. We succeed, and we're young, and we have all the aspirations of living a great life, and then we go out in our life, and things happen, and we compromise, and we do the best we can, and maybe we win some, and we lose some. Maybe we lose more than we win. Maybe we're lucky and we win more than we lose. But eventually, we muddle through it, and then eventually we get sick and we die, which could be thought of as a failure, right? But it's not a failure. This is life. All of life does more or less exactly that. So why interpret that as a bad thing? We may just have an overly simplistic model that's not included in the reality.
Why do we whine so much?
Because it feels so good.
Dying dinosaurs.
You said just now, what I heard you agreeing with something that Mark said was that objective reality doesn't change.
Huh?
Was that what you said? Objective reality doesn't
Well, I didn't say it, he said it, and I didn't call him on it.
Okay, that's all I mean.
But objective reality is both doesn't change, the facts of the case don't change, and yet it constantly changes in terms of its functionality and its expression. So you can't collapse it down to one or the other. Or you can't collapse actual reality down to anything. It includes all opposites. It's a full spectrum. It's like arguing about if the rainbow is red or blue. Well, yeah, it's red and blue. It's changeless and it's constantly changing. It's everything and it's nothing. It's real and it's unreal. All of these qualities, these simplistic, human logical qualities we come up and try and throw at it, they're all true, and none of them captures it. It's beyond anything that we can say about it. It's beyond all models.
One of the things that was mentioned several times, and I haven't gotten it yet, but it's along the same similar lines of what we're talking about. You mentioned that it, meaning reality, can appear as anything, and I just can you comment about that in terms of is it can appear as anything in our objective experience, or our experience, whatever.
I'm not sure I understand the question. And what I mean is anything can seem to be happening. Anything whatsoever can seem to be happening. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the next second, let alone the next 5 minutes, or the next day, or the next week, or the next year, or the next decade, or the next 1,000 years.
But when you say
Anything can happen. The aliens might land tomorrow. The Earth might explode.
Really?
Of course. There's no law against it.
But what do you mean when you say it can appear as anything?
Well, whatever
Because I
it
know
is.
you're referring to truth, reality,
Sure.
and my experience, my objective experience is that if I understand what you're saying, everything is reality, everything is truth, everything that's happening in my consciousness is it.
Yes.
Is that a correct
Yes.
understanding?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you're saying the sun might not rise tomorrow?
That's right. It might not. The Earth might explode. The sun might explode. A huge comet might come down and smash into the Earth and blow it into pieces.
I don't agree with that.
I'm sorry?
I don't think I would agree with that.
That's fine.
The sun
If-
does not rise.
Huh?
The sun does not rise. The Earth goes around the sun. She got you.
So are you saying the Earth is not going around the sun tomorrow?
We don't know, do we? There's going to come a time when the Earth is not going around the sun. And we don't know when that time is.
How do you know?
Huh?
How do you know?
I don't. I'm positing that. That's what science says. Science says that eventually solar systems fall apart, suns explode, planets smash into.
Tomorrow?
Of course. How do we know?
Okay.
It's going to happen when it's going to happen. There's no timetable posted on the wall. You can say, "Oh no, I'm sorry, that won't happen for another 1.5 million years." We don't know, do we?
We seem to glorify things like light or existence or the life force. Isn't it also true that nothing or death of my whole life and form and everything I know is just as real as existence or life or
But all those words you threw out.
nothing good or bad
Right.
about
All those words you threw out are words for one thing. Well, you can't say what.
reality, I guess,
Yeah.
or whatever you try to
Of course.
call it.
So differentiating it as life or death or
Right.
light or whatever
Right.
is just. It's like blind man and the elephant. One goes and feels his leg and says an elephant's like a tree, and another goes feels his tail and says an elephant's like a snake. So we say, well, what is this? Well, it's life, it's light, it's pain, it's suffering, it's death, it's enlightenment. Well, yeah, but it's none of those things, and it's all of those things. It's what it is, and what that is right here. And all I'm inviting us to do is see what it is, see that we are it, and then see that all of these different ways of relating to it are included in it. It comes free. It's like, you get reality and you get life and pain and suffering and death and enlightenment. It all comes with it. no added fee.
And it doesn't end necessarily happily ever after in terms of light or existence. It could be anything. We don't.
Well, it definitely is existence.
It's existence?
Certainly.
What about non-existence?
Well, if there's non-existence, non-existence is existence. Or existence and non-existence are words for the same thing.
Right.
If there is non-existence, it has to be real. And if it's real, it is reality. So again, we're splitting hairs. We're saying it's this and that when it's both and beyond.
It's beyond speech.
Yeah.
Beyond
speech. And all our words refer to the same thing, no matter how divergent their dictionary definitions are.
I'm reminded of Rodney King when he said, "Can't we all just get along?"
No way. People don't fight.
When I moved with your suggestion to really stay with the inexperience, as experience.
As opposed to what? Where are you going to go?
Yeah. That's a great question. Well, how to describe that difference, As opposed to to start from experience, I might say, as opposed to starting from a thought.
But if you start from a thought, the thought is experience. So that's just another word for starting from experience.
That's true, but there's a strange, but there's believing in thoughts.
Right.
And when I start from experience, and when I start from experience and then a thought arises within experience, I can see it for what it is. When I start from thinking and relate to experience through thinking, I'm more likely to believe in the thinking. And that creates a very different experience.
Okay, that's a good observation.
Yeah. So anyway, when I do that, when I start from my experience, which I tend to do here a little bit more because of your encouragement, when you were just having this conversation, what I noticed is that even death, so-called death, right, it's just a rearrangement of, it's just a rearrangement of conditions within,
of course.
Within whatever we're calling it.
Death is a fantasy. As you sit here and talk about death, you can only talk about something you imagine because you don't know what it is. When you're on your deathbed and you're actually dying, you will know what death is, but you will be alive.
Right.
So death is life.
Right.
Death is a word for life. And the fantasy of death is something drastically different, is just that, it's a fantasy.
Exactly. And you're also suggesting is that we can know that with conviction.
What you can know with conviction is that what this is what is all that is, and everything that happens is always it, never departs from it, and is its functioning. So it is always it, inalienably, and you are that.
That's right. And it, right.
You're always that. You can't depart from that. When you're on your deathbed, you will be this. You're sitting here, you are this. No difference whatsoever. The day you find enlightenment and you're sitting on the top of the Himalayas with thousands of people clamoring to touch your feet, it will be this. So this is, what always is, you are that, and anything whatsoever that happens is nothing other than this. So there's no actual gain, no actual loss. You can't depart from this. Because any departure from this happens within this.
That's what I was saying. So even death is just a rearrangement of a limited set of circumstances within.
It has to be. Look and see for yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's what suggested itself to me a few moments ago.
I keep thinking of death as the ultimate realization of powerlessness.
Sure. But if it is, then life is the same. Life is the same powerlessness. Here we are in our circumstances, and things present themselves unpredictably, and we respond to them with whatever resources we have at our disposal, which we didn't put there. We didn't pick and choose our personalities. We didn't pick and choose our assets, our intelligence, our functionality. So accidents come in, we respond to them accidentally, which produces an accidental result, which leads to the next ongoing cascade failure.
How does choice come into play?
How does it? Look and see. How do you choose something?
If you say choice, if you say things just happen to us, we are just the effect, not the cause. And how does the karma works, and how does choice come into play?
Well, how could it come into play? How can you choose something? Say we both go into a restaurant.
At this moment, I can choose to be silent, or I can choose to speak up. It's
right. But why do you choose what you do choose? Why did you choose to speak now?
And that's my own. I decided for whatever reason I decided, but that's
right.
Beyond the point.
But no, it's not beyond the point. It's exactly the point, because you asked what choice is. When you ask what choice is, you have to look at the mechanism. Why do I choose to be saying these words I'm saying? Because I'm who I am. Why am I who I am? A string of accidents. Because the DNA that came from my father hit the DNA that came to my mother, which had certain qualities. And then I grew up in a certain environment which I had no control over, stream of accidents again, which imprinted me and made me neurotic the ways that I am, and so on and so forth, all of which led to me having the proclivities that I have now. If you were up here, you'd be saying different words. Why? Why would you make different choices than I'm making? Because you're different than me, Why are you different? Because of an ongoing stream of accidents that you did not engineer. You didn't engineer your parents getting together.
But
you didn't engineer your childhood.
Even as me, as the same person, at the same moment, I could make different choices. So.
Well, you say that.
It's not just things.
Could you choose to do what I would choose?
Probably yes, probably not. Just depends.
Okay. Yeah, then that's fine.
But I don't think I understand what you're saying about like things just happen to us, and how does that? I still feel like my question was answered.
Oh, what did you follow what I said about the chain of accidents that led to me being what I am in the moment? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I meant. If there's a chain of accidents which leads me to being what I am, and I make my
accidents are the chain is consistent of moment by moment, and each moment is a choice.
It is. Mm-hmm. When I was beat up in the 3rd grade by somebody, was it my choice?
You chose to be there.
I chose to be in school.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Why did I choose to be in school?
I don't know. Why did you?
Well, exactly. Why did I choose to be in school? Because I was the kind of a person that went along with the program sufficiently. My parents told me to go to school, and I went. Some other person might have said, "No way, I'm not going to school. Screw this. I'm going to go out and smoke."
You could have chosen not.
If I was a different person, I could have. If I had different makeup, different tendencies, how would I have those tendencies? Could I choose to have tendencies that I don't have?
I think so. We can change our habits.
Well, that's good then. And you have freedom. You have freedom of choice.
Can we always change our habits?
Huh?
Can we always change our habits? You can decide to not do something or do something.
Well, maybe. Arguably yes. Arguably no. You can come down on the other side of that. Everything constantly changes. But how does it change, and why does it change as it goes along?
This is what I get wrapped up in thinking I have the power.
Yeah.
I have the power.
Well, look and see. Look and see.
Look where and see what.
Look into your life, into your experience, into your functioning, and see how it works in real time. When you make a choice.
That's how I see. I make choices.
Well, that's good then. There's no problem. Then there's no reason for you to ask the question.
The reason for me to ask the question is that you say everything just happened to us, so we don't make choices.
Well, you're free to. You can choose to disagree. You're free. You have free choice, so you can say no. I disagree with you.
It seems to me that it's a paradox. I mean, I think I and most of us, whether we admit it or not, we tend to assume we have a choice. It gives us a sense of self or a sense of confidence that we can survive in the world and do well, as if I can make choices and decisions and shape myself. And on a relative level, it seems to be true, and I try to keep improving my ability to make good choices. But on the other side, at the very same time, I think ultimately everything you're saying is crystal clear. That we're not, I wouldn't call it victims, although that's a dark way of looking at the same thing. But everything is sort of given to us without our being asked. And then you just think you're playing with it as best you can. And so it seems like a paradox. It seems like both are true. But I think ultimately I have a choice whether I even have a breath to say I have choice or not have choice. It's all, I call it luck or blessing, whatever. Breath, energy to bitch and complain is not mine. It's just a gift. It's luck that I can bitch and doubt and have problems is a gift. It's just all given.
And if the energy is given, then it's logical to understand that the functionality of that energy is also given.
Right. What does that mean? I didn't get that part.
The way the energy works, in other words, the way your personality works, the bitching, say.
It's all part of conditions.
Yeah, but the conditions arise with the energy that is given. Because the conditions are themselves energy.
Right.
And they're given.
And when you had talked about the noticing, when you're saying that there's not a way to change we're really stuck, I think the noticing itself, which is something that comes sort of little by little over time, as long as we don't box it in by labeling it and like identifying or going against it or whatever, but just the noticing can allow changes. And I'd also like to put in a word for love and compassion, which came up earlier, because as we're doing our noticing and all of that, everything's not bad in terms of how we experience it. There's the total range. So as we notice, it may be that we notice compassion, we care, or we may notice not that. And our actions can then come from that, as long as we're not doing a maneuver based on what we think, our thoughts.
Here, if I could get this in before our comes to an end here. It seems to me that there are other topics that are difficult or impossible to talk about besides this God business. For example, and this could be a model. I want to pursue this. This is an interesting. I think it's an interesting way of looking at this. Is that if you look at all this modern physics stuff, with these equations and models, most everybody would say that trying to describe what it is a waste of time, and that any verbal description of physics is pretty much useless. Just get the equations and start solving them and start bouncing atoms around, and then you'll be doing it. Okay, not talking about it. And then meanwhile, I've had this own personal experience where I've developed what I call my neuroscience, and I decided some years ago that you can't talk about that either. There's no way to describe a science of Christ the main reason. You just do it, okay? You just sit there and you run ideas from one thing to another and start happens. And describing it is almost a complete waste of time. What's important is to physically carry it out. Now, that would apply, I think, to this God business, to be saying, well, okay, now talking about God is a complete waste of time because you should be doing it instead. So, but then the action that you continually refer to is an action of perceiving. There's never any doing God because God apparently doesn't do anything. He just perceives things or something. I'm not sure. What I'm wondering is, suppose I wanted to cease all talk, and just do it. Okay, then is this doing mostly an act of noticing and perception?
The doing is experience itself. The doing is experience. And what can you say? Is experience limited to anything? Is experience limited to passivity? Experience includes everything it includes. It includes me waving my hands around. It includes talking. It includes listening. It includes feeling. And it includes, it includes what it includes, which is, beyond characterization.
But does any of that actually exist? This waving of the hand business, isn't that just pure consciousness?
Seeing whether or not that exists and seeing the way in which it exists is doing God.
See, the point being, since talking can never reveal anything, neither can it reveal quantum physics either. You just have to bounce the atoms off the wall and see what happens.
Exactly.
So
bounce the atoms. Bounce the atoms.
Right. Talking is never going to produce an answer.
That's a way of bouncing atoms. Isn't that bouncing atoms talk?
Well, I call this my physics experiment. This is I bounce ideas off of Peter, and either he tells me to go to hell or he says, yeah. And each one of them is $1 million hit. When I get one, they work. Billions of dollars are being spent in Switzerland to build a radio. Colliders are much more expensive and produce a lot less information than the Okay, so
I should license myself to the Swiss.
Take treasure. It's the doing that matters.
Exactly so. It's the doing. And yet, what is not doing? Can you find anything that considers not doing?
So then we find out we were doing it all along.
The doing of God is life. The doing of God is being. And life is the spiritual path. Life is spiritual unfoldment. That you can't, there's nothing but.
So just keep on breathing.
Or not.
Including dying, right?
Everything.
Dying, everything's suffering.
And it's doing itself. Life is living itself. Life puts us here, and we are that life. It's doing itself, and its path is to discover itself. So, it's a done deal. It's ongoing.
We're being done.
Yes, we're being done.
Well, one thing I should also point out is that life on Earth is in no danger whatsoever by any asteroid strike or any other, because life has already been destroyed numerous times, and it just bounces back. There was this period called the late bombardment, in which a quarter of the Earth's crust melted because of 20 million years of heavy bombardment of asteroids, but yet in the boiling ocean, there was still plenty of bacteria living, and life came back like a rocket. As soon as that was over, life jumped out of the jacket.
And even if life ceased on Earth, so what? Why suppose Earth is the only place where life is? And even if 3/4 of the universe was wiped out, so what? Why assume that that's the only place where life is?
Life is not any danger at all. And we're just part of it all, so big deal. There's no tragedy. There's just life going on.
I'm with you.
Well, what I call the cone of expansion is the word I like to use for it. There's the Earth is like a ledge. It sits in the middle of the space, and life is like it expands out in a conical manner. Over time, its area increases. Okay, so the cones of expansion, and we're in.
I won't argue with that.
Who cares if there's a purpose?
We have a couple more minutes. Anything anyone hasn't heard and talked about that they'd like to?
Well, the difference between that which doesn't move and that which does.
Yes. Is there a difference?
Yeah, for me there always is. It's like there's something that never moves that I call more like awareness, and it's just huge. Doesn't move though, but it does experience through me. It sees and so on.
Right.
And then there's this thing that is sometimes it moves, and it's like, God darn, it's like a movie going.
What's it made of? The thing that moves.
Just everything.
Right, but what's it made of? What substance does it consist of?
I don't even know if it has substance.
Okay, it doesn't have substance. Why assume it's different from what doesn't move?
Only because...
it behaves different, and you're describing it as different, but why not assume it's one thing that happens to look as if it both doesn't move and does move?
I guess I sort of think like that. But I experience them both.
Yeah, sure, me too. But I would say the experience of them both is having two different ways of describing something which is beyond. Yes, something which is beyond description.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And that's, I think, when you say, do you decide? There's this place there where, I have this facility of will and making decisions, and I can feel that. And then there's the part that just happens, and that's fine.
Sure, of course. And again, there's no reason to suppose there's a dichotomy there.
Right.
There's different ways, describing different aspects of something, but there's no reason to assume they're not aspects of one thing.
Yeah.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
No. I don't believe in anything.
So what happened after we die?
I'm sorry?
What happened after we die?
I don't know. But I don't know what's happening now.
Do you know where you come from?
No. I don't know where I come from. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. And I don't even know if those notions are relevant.
So then what is the path? What is a spiritual path if there's no where to go? And my question might sound naive, but...
No, not at all. The spiritual path is a notion. It's a metaphor. It's a euphemism.
Do we go backwards or do we go forward?
I don't know. Find out. Look and see. Well, thank you all for coming, and have a lovely evening.
And there's a $5 donation basket up here for the use of this